Welcome to the Action Shooting Show. Tonight it is me, Ryan, and then we have Mike Ford. Our other host could not make it tonight, so we're just going to fly as a duo, which works out. We like to get people on. We're going to be doing a match after action today, and while we do like to get people on who didn't shoot the match to kind of ask questions and lead us down paths we wouldn't think. Obviously that's not happening tonight. So Tiger has internet issues, and Mark is being a panty waste. So that seems to be the case. So this, like I said, this is an after action report, and this will be on as my shirt here, the Heartbreak Run and Gun. This is this is the first after action we ever did was Heartbreak. So this will be our third time doing an after action on this match. So I guess to start us off, we always like to talk about match flavor. Mike, do you want to kind of discuss the match flavor? I guess it's really the same every year, and then we can kind of go into the specifics of this year.
Yeah, Heartbreak is a phenomenal match that's put on in the rolling hills of Kentucky outside of Lexington. So you've got a beautiful mixture of open rolling fields and woods along a river valley. So it's a challenging physical course that this year I think the average competitor was getting around 7 miles, which is shorter than previous years, and beautiful trails and woods to hike through. The shooting stages themselves are normally not extremely difficult. It's more about being able to execute quick, accurate shooting, and then the stages themselves are pretty linear. It's normally a challenge. They do a fair amount of know your holds just because their long range is limited to 300 yards. And then most of the bay stages, you're engaging targets inside 50 yards. So depending on your zero, you might need to know where your height over bore is or your holds for targets that might be as small as 2 inches at varying distances. Most of the stages can be completed without a magazine change, depending on who the shooter is. And round counts this year were at around, I believe, just under 60 rounds a gun. And it was an interesting challenge because they did not give a hit count this year. So it was up to the shooter's discretion to bring what they thought they needed. So good match, excellent flavor. Felt very much like Heartbreak to the past with some small changes that we'll get into here in a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess, the way I describe the shooting match is, or the shooting challenges is, I don't want to say technical as in like they're trying to do different things with it. Mike, we can hear you clicking. But technical is in like Mike said, there's height over bore stuff. There's probably going to be some strong hand, weak hand. I know there's going to be like a VTAC board. You're going to have some kind of, this year they had a 2 or 3 kind of interesting barricades that you had to like get down in. You had to, one of them, we'll get there. You kind of had to get real hard to one side or the other. There's just like positional shooting, I guess, is the best way. The long range usually has that, but there's no crazy stuff. There's nothing as far as the shooting that's like super difficult. But as Mike said, the course is, I think, even though it's shorter, the course was probably harder this year. And that course means that when you show up to a stage, you could be pretty smoked. So these it's like, how well can you keep your technical shooting down, your proficiency down when you're smoked and now you've got kind of a weird position you got to be in, or an offhand, pistol. I'm shooting with my left hand, or I've got, something different. So that's kind of their thing. I like, there's no real, except for the throoms, which everyone hates. That's about the smallest target you're going to see. There's no crazy small targets. There's no weirdness. It's just kind of, if you have good technique, you should do all right. So, divisions. Heartbreak's maybe a little bit more than some, but it's still pretty simple. There's two main divisions, and then those are broke up into two different subdivisions, I guess. So you have light, which, like most running guns, is whatever gear you want. From 9mm up pistol, 223 and up. No weight restrictions, no minimum, no maximum. Basically, whatever gear you need to successfully complete the course is what you bring in light. Next, you have Heartbreak. So for the Heartbreak division, if you are over 150 pounds, your body weight, you have to end the course with at least 30 pounds of extra gear, not counting your main weapons, your pistol and your rifle. If you are under 150, then you end up with 20 pounds of gear. So some people are doing plates or something like that. For the majority of people, they're doing like a ruck, like a backpack with extra weight, magazines, whatever. Now you take that and you add the plus division. Light plus is that light division plus a whole bunch of extra physical challenges. And this year, a new kind of twist to it was excuse me, all iron-sighted guns. So iron-sighted pistol, no big deal. Iron-sighted rifle, maybe a little bit bigger deal. That freaked a lot of people out. So you have that plus in light, and you have that plus in Heartbreak. So when you look at the divisions, there's going to be 4 different divisions, but it's basically just that plus or not. So like I said, plus has that pistol and rifle kind of challenge added to it, but you also have physical challenges. Here in a second, we'll start running you through the course stage by stage, and we'll discuss where those plus challenges come in as they come in, because both me and Mike did the plus this year. Mike has done plus every year that it's been available. I've done plus the last 3 years, which is the 3 times I've shot the match. So we're definitely well acquainted with it. And this year they changed some things up a little bit, I guess, to go into that. Typically the plus challenges, they will say do X event, usually like an exercise or something like that. You have to do this many in this amount of time. So like in the past, it would be you have to do 10 Turkish get-ups and you have 60 seconds to do it in. Or a dead hang last year. You had to do a dead hang, and you had to hang there for 60 seconds. This year, there was no time limit on anything. Take as long as you want. It's on your run time. The flip side of that was that they upped the amount that you had to do, sometimes double and triple what it's been in the past. So that definitely made a challenge. Before we get into this, Mike, I guess, do we want to talk about our kit real quick? So a lot of people like to hear about that. So you want to start kind of talk about what gear you brought?
Yeah. So I'll start with load bearing. I went with my old Blackhawk Cyclone. It's a 3-day assault style pack, and I built an internal frame for it this year. I used to use it for a lot of my heavy class stuff, especially at Rock Castle, and always struggled with the bag kind of wanting to collapse from the weight. So I ended up taking a piece of 1/2-inch plywood and cutting out an internal frame, and that kept the pack from wanting to lose its form, and also added to the 30 pounds I needed. And then used the good old yoga block method to put the weight in one place. The reason I chose that over my traditional frame pack that I've been running the last few years is the obstacle course at Heartbreak is difficult to move gear through. So you want your weight to be as slim and low profile as possible, yet still be comfortable to wear. So that's what I did for my pack. I did my Spiritus chest rig with 4 pistol mags across the front and 3 rifle mags. And I did not use the dangler this year. Kept it pretty low profile, knowing that we were doing the crawls and having to bend over, and ran light on medical. And then the options I used for belt and holster was I used my Safariland 6390 RDS for my Glock 17, and didn't need a red dot capability, but it gave me the ALS system, which I think is pretty necessary for what we do. And that worked well on a True North drop, and using QLS forks for the drop on the belt and for the holster body. Then I end up using a taco on just my normal belt, a double stack with pistol and rifle, and then one of the long pistol ones, and just kept that as my load and make ready. So it worked out pretty well. Just keep finding I'm drifting farther away from like the 2-inch wide belts and battle belts, and just going to slimmer and slimmer belts around my waist. And yeah, that was kind of what I ran for my web gear. Did you want us to brush on guns at this segment too then?
Yeah,
Okay.
might as well.
So for the handgun, I went back to my Glock 17 and replaced the front tritium with a fiber optic. And that is the handgun that I started 3-gun with, and I started running gun with. So it didn't take me very much to jump back in the saddle with that and start shooting it pretty well. Plus, being a Glock guy, it's most of what I run anyways. And then for the rifle, I use this as a great excuse to build another upper for my SBR. Starting and going tip to butt, as Grantham would say. I ran a Sandman K with the e-brake. This is a great can for cutting down on the noise, but still the shot timers don't really have any problem picking it up. And it wasn't too bad weight-wise, and to get through things like VTAC boards. So just kind of cut the edge off the sounds and help keep the muzzle stable when shooting. Then a Centurion Picatinny handguard, kind of went old school with that. With Scott's running gun tactics steady shot. This is the first running gun that I use this at, and I was very happy with how I was able to get stable on some of the stuff on the stages. We'll go into those details later. This is a unique barrel. This is the Forward Controls Design 12.5 with the dedicated suppressed gas port. And the front sight was put on and penned there by D. Wilson. He does excellent work. I've used him for a lot of my AR type needs that are beyond the tooling I have available. And then went with the good old school A2 carry handle. So that was placed on top of my Mars L SBR lower, and ran a Lantac Enhanced Full Carrier Group, which is excellent for running suppressed and keeping the gas out of the shooter's face, with a Forward Controls Design charging handle. This is kind of a new one for me, and I've been playing with it. Some of the bigger ambi handles with the axle latches here that actuate can get snagged on gear, and you'll find the charging handle is unlocked mid-stage or when you're running the course, just because it snags on your web gear. This did a great job. I didn't find it unlocked once by accident, and it still works as a great ambi charging handle. One of the interesting things that Ryan and I did when we knew that we were going to be shooting long range with irons is I went ahead and did the math and trigged out what the MOA adjustments for my rear drum are. And we zeroed and then went out and confirmed what our holds were going to be for 50 to 100, and then I move one position to where it's witness marked to go 200, and then 3 more positions gets me to my 300-yard hold. And this does not actually line up with the normal markings, because the A2 carry handle is designed for a 20-inch barrel and the ballistics that go with it in the current round that was being used. So we kind of had to do a little legwork. And overall, the rifle ran great. I ran it, and our good friend Paul K, he ran it for his run for Heartbreak Plus on the course. And the rifle did pretty good. So those were the guns that I used, and I thought that they worked out really well I will mention I replaced the traditional front sight with a Blitzkrieg components spike, and then for the zeroing process, I kind of went with a dot the eye style zero for that front sight, and that worked out really well for the target presentations and the height over bore type stuff that we had to handle. So that was my guns that I ran. Ryan, tell me about what you used.
Yeah, this was some things were the same, some were different, so I'll kind of go the same order Mike went. So for a pack, I actually just used like I think it's a Glock backpack that I had won at got off a prize table. So very similar size pack to what Mike had. I actually I wanted to run a biathlon sling. So using an idea that Mike had been talking about for a while, I kind of beat him to the building, and I made a PVC frame, and filled that with lead shot. So that got me up to 23 pounds or something like that in weight. Then I added on, sandbag and like for rear bag, a knife, some other little random tools and stuff like that. Then when you added on my magazines, empty magazines and stuff at the end, web gear, it ended up equaling over 30 pounds. So that was my pack. Ran my RDR chest rig, which is kind of similar to Spiritus, the modular micro chest rig. It holds same as Mike. I was holding 4 pistol mags and 3 rifle mags. Just my ELS belt, Blackhawk Omnivore holster, and then some just a couple like a pistol mag and a couple pistol mags or mag holders and a rifle mag holder. So I tend to run everything on my chest and then just have like 1 pistol and 1 rifle mag on my belt for so at the beginning of the stage. I guess we didn't talk about this at the beginning. The way that Heartbreak is run is it's completely cold range. So you can't run around with like a hot pistol or anything like that. And they always have a make ready before the stage starts. So I'll make ready off my chest rig and leave a full loaded rifle and full loaded pistol mag on my belt for like an emergency reload. So if you had a malfunction, if you have a bad stage and you run dry, it's quicker to reload typically off the belt than your chest rig. If you've not ever experimented with it, it's good to be able to do both, but if I had to pick one, I'd definitely be loading off the belt. So that's my normal gear. Nothing real crazy there. For pistol, I busted out my old Rock Island. For iron sights, I've been running the Staccato, which is a little bit heavy, and this Rock Island is an absolute tank. Like it's a 3-pound brick. It shoots awesome though, so I shot it really well. I think I shot that pretty close to the same as if I would have had a red dot. My red dot is Staccato. So you put either of those in my hand, I feel like I can get the job done with it. Pistol or rifle wise, I ended up building a new gun for this. Excuse me. And I shot an SBR as well. This is not quite as fancy as Mike's, but I guess we'll start from the front. I got my same as Mike. I've got my Thunder Beast muzzle brake on it, 2-port brake. It worked fine. Uncle Sam is still not told me I'm allowed to have my cans, so I had to run canless like a heathen. Sons of Liberty handguard, Roscoe barrel. Same as Mike, I've got one of the Run and Gun Tactics steady rest bags. I've been using bags like this or similar for a couple years. Before the Run and Gun Tactics bag came out, I was using the ESC Dynamics bag. Me and Mike both kind of prototype some of these for Scott. This is one of the production models. I've got one of the prototypes, and this is a production model. So we had a little input in it, but I like how it laces on as opposed to the Velcro of the ESC Dynamics. I think maybe we'll do a video on them at some point, but I do like that. I had a couple options, but I ended up going with a friend gave me a bolt-on, one of the kind of detachable carry handles. Kind of as Mike was talking about, I wanted to be able to adjust for, distance. So there's like my 200-yard hold. If I go a little bit more, I got my 300-yard hold. So I didn't do all the math that Mike did. I just went out and shot it and then adjusted and shot it again, and we kind of figured out the general holds for it. So that worked out fairly well. We'll talk about that later. But arrow upper and lower, Rubber City Armory bolt carrier group. Those guys love to help us out, and they make a great bolt carrier group. So I was happy to run that. Geisley safety, Geisley charging handle, A5 buffer system. I think those do a really good job for tame, especially kind of short barrel, carbine gas, and then the Bravo butt stock there. So nothing crazy. It shot great. It worked great. I was really, really happy with the performance of it. If I missed, it was not from the gun. So, that's reliable. I didn't have any issues with it, which is nice. I've been, for the most part, I've been shooting the same 16-inch for like the last two seasons. So I think I'll shoot this more this year. I think I'll take the carry handle off and put some kind of optic on it. But yeah, I was pretty happy with how it worked. I hate switching gear. I like to get gear running, and once I know it runs, I just shoot it. I don't screw around with it. I don't dick with it. I don't change stuff around because I just want stuff to run, And all my gear runs. I can't say I have anything that's real like a turd, but once you know something's reliable, it's just nice to stick with it. So I didn't say it, I also have a Blitzkrieg front sight on it. I don't know if we can point a gun at everyone, get the safety people, but you can kind of see how it's got a kind of a point to it. So when, especially some of the targets we had, those throoms and things are a little smaller. It's really nice to have that kind of point that you can, a little finer aiming point than, actually I think I got the factory right here. So, anyone that shot iron sights, you kind of got this big blocky front sight, which, you can definitely do a lot of work with this, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it is nice to have a little bit finer aiming point. I know Brian Vaught was showing me his iron-sighted gun, AR, and he had the front sight was actually like either turned or milled down to like a smaller diameter. So, if you're really trying to get some finer shooting done with iron sights, it's nice to have that. All right, so we got gear done. Let's kind of start going into the stages. So Heartbreak, they do a what would you call it? Like a gang start. So typically 4 people, they send out every half hour, I think, and 4 people will line up at the start line. They tell them to go, and they head off. It's kind of a sprint to the first stage. The first stage actually doesn't have any wait time. There's no way to get wait time on it. You have to decide, is it worth sprinting ahead and beating these other people there? Is it worth going a little slower and showing up and maybe have them still shooting and have to wait there on your run time? Kind of up to you. But for plus people, before it was even time for you to start, so your run times, you're off the clock. They had the first obstacle that you were going to go over after the start was a big round bale. So I think those are like 4-inch or 4-foot diameter, something like that. Plus, competitors had to, with all your gear, jump over the hay bales 40 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, before you even started. Then once the course started, you jumped over the hay bale again. You crawled underneath a like a hay wagon, and you're off to the first stage. Yeah, and actually, before you got to the first stage, you got to your first cache item. They have buckets out on the course with little items in them, and that's kind of how they know that you went to that section. Kind of keeps people honest. You went to that section, you were there, you can prove it, so that people don't like either intentionally or accidentally cut course. because there's a lot of course that you could miss. So before you got to stage 1, there was a barn, and you had to climb up over hay bales, climb onto them, walk across them, get your first cash item, which was just a little plastic bag that you could hold your other cash items in. And yeah, you just kept walking. You walk through that, and you head to what is always their first stage, which is down in a little pit. Mike, do you want to talk about that first stage?
I sure can. So, stage 1 this year, down in the pit, you got to, and if you were a plus shooter, the first thing you did was pick up a cinder block, hold it over your head for 1 minute. Now, it's important to think about this stage you don't get wait time off of. So, it's a balance of, hey, I know I'm probably going to have some sort of pistol accuracy stage. How hard do I want to push getting there? And then if you're a plus competitor, it wasn't just how out of breath you were, it's how trembly your arms are after holding a cinder block over your head. That challenge also was done with full kit on for Heartbreak Plus. Now, when the competitor went up to shoot the stage, there was, I believe, 9 pistol plates. It was 8 or 9.
I think there
9.
wasn't
I'm looking
it
at
8?
my notes.
Well, I thought it was 18 points possible.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So it would have been 6.
Yes.
Sorry, I was looking at my number. So it was, 6
Yeah.
shots, 6 plates. You shot, and they were varying sizes, varying distance. You could fire 1 round at each plate from from far to near, and then near to far, and then
I think I at least when I was there, it was far to near, and you did that 3 times. So just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I might be a little addled. I swear that he had me shoot out for one of those.
Well, and the thing to I guess mention to people is we shot RO day because we worked the match, and RO day, for better or worse, you get some inconsistencies with how it's RO'd. Because I had the guy I had, I think I was the first person to come through. He had just got down there, so we may have shot it differently. So you could have been right.
That and my stage brief, they never. I do not recall for the life of me being told it was not timed. That it was a straight accuracy, which I probably should have known from shooting that in the past.
I was not told that either.
Yeah, because they'll have 2 shooters shooting at one time, I probably should have, hey, this is probably just a straight accuracy, not time. But I was in one of the first groups out on RO day. And, RO day, it just kind of is what it is. We do our best to try to give everyone the same experience. But, it's tough. So, yeah, it was a high consequence because you only got to fire 1 round at each target in the sequence 1 time. So if you dropped a shot, you just had to eat the penalty. There was no makeup. Without thinking that was timed, I was trying to balance speed and accuracy when I really could have slowed down and just shot straight accuracy. So I dropped a few rounds there. I'm ashamed to admit, but it wasn't the worst start I've ever had to a match, but it definitely felt like a shaky first stage. How do you feel about that one, Ryan?
Yeah, same. I mean, I started good. There was like the second to furthest back target was, I would guess 6 inches maybe. Like it was definitely on the smaller side of plates. I don't think I hit that a single time, but everything else, like I went 5 for 6 the first time, and I got a little too confident and dropped a couple, but definitely not the worst first stage I've ever had. But I think intentionally they probably didn't tell you how the scoring was because they wanted you to kind of figure out on your own. But it was a good first stage. They're kind of limited there with what they can do, so that is kind of you get what you get. So after that, they sent you up. You kind of ran along a grass field. There's kind of a road there for a little bit. And you work your way through some woods. And you came up to stage 2, which in the past couple has been like the last stage, the long range, which is what we call the long range stage. Usually 100, 200, 300. That this year was no exception, but it's the second stage of the match here. So you started off on a hedgehog, so like the kind of crossed wood, looks like an old school World War II tank trap or hedgehog they call them, and you had 2 targets at 100 yards, 3 targets at 200 yards, and 2 targets at 300 yards. And you shot that off the hedgehog. Then you moved over and you shot it off of a tire that was on a table. When I shot it, and I don't know if this was consistent through the whole weekend, when I shot it, they would not let you move on to the next distance until you had neutralized the targets that were at the earlier stage, which kind of sucks because, like, so with iron sights, the 100-yard targets were visible. Like I could see them. I made shots fairly quick. I didn't take many shots on those. The 200 and the MDs marked the stand. They put some flyers on them, little streamers, and they painted them. And I'm sure the targets were painted at one point, but by the time I got there, I couldn't see any paint on them really. And at 200 yards, my eyes, the lighting, I was a little later in the day. Maybe it didn't matter at the time of day. I just couldn't see where the targets were at. So I got my hits all right at 100, 200. There was 3 targets there. I kind of spent some time on each of them, and I could not find a single one of those targets to save my life, And it was like I could see the stand. I'd shoot, here, and then I'd move over just a little bit, and I'd shoot there, and I'd move up a little, and I kind of did some exploratory. I may have hit one of the 200s. I can't remember quite right now, but I know I didn't get through all 3, which sucks because the 300-yard targets were fairly large and visible, and I'm confident that they were more visible than the 300-yard I was practicing on. I knew it was a bigger target than what I was practicing on, so I was a little disappointed with the situation myself there, just not being able to see them. I said, it's an iron sight challenge. I think I didn't talk to anyone with iron sights that shot it that I think was real happy with how they shot the stage. But some did better. A lot did better than me, but it's just kind of the nature of the beast. I have okay eyes, but they're obviously not good enough to see a target on the back of a berm at 200 yards. Mike, I know you did a little bit better. How'd you feel about that stage?
So yeah, that was a challenging stage. Where I went to try to get steady on the hedgehog, I kind of had to readjust and went to knee and ended up putting the steady shot using one side of it and then kind of wrapping my hand and pulling the rifle flat, and then just tried to kneel in such a way that I could put my right elbow kind of on my knee, just trying to get stable, a little more bone on bone. The 100 yards were
Bone,
very easy.
bone on soft. Bone on soft, hopefully.
Well, it's right behind your knee, so
Yeah, but
there's a little bit of soft, but you're not like in flabby muscle. It's a
yeah,
pretty stable position.
yeah.
Um,
I guess I was saying that you don't normally want bone on bone. You want, hard on soft.
yeah, semantics in this case. So the I ended up getting pretty stable for that condition. 100 yards were very easy. The there's a little bit of confusion even early on when I went through in the day because I think the left target might have been broken and hanging by one chain, and so you were shooting at what would have been the center target and then the right target at the 200 yards, but they had you double hit the center target and then move to the right one. And at 200 yards, you could see the little strips of like marker tape off the sides, but you really couldn't see the stands, and it was extremely difficult to see the plate. I kind of thought I could like see a little bit of a gray smudge against the berm, and so I just kind of started bracketing around there. Was able to get my hits, and then the 300-yard targets were easier to engage and neutralize than that one 200-yard. It was difficult to see. I made it through the hedgehog. Then the second shooting position was a tire sitting on a table, so you couldn't really kneel. It wasn't really a comfortable standing position. It was just kind of awkward, which was the goal. And I was able to get the steady shot up on that, and then just kind of put my hand over the hand guard in front of the carry handle at the barrel nut, and just kind of steady the rifle there. And I was able to get through the 100 and successfully neutralize all the 200, and ran out of time with just the two 300 targets remaining. So out of, I believe, 14 rifle hits, I was able to neutralize 12 of those targets. So with irons, that was a good run. But to me, that felt terrible. Normally, the long range stages are something that I do really well on, and it certainly didn't feel like I did well on at that time. So.
Yeah, I mean, irons that, and that was the fun of this. I mean, it's a little defeating feeling, especially when, like I said, I can't see the targets. I feel like I got a good hold. I feel like I'm stable, and I know my dope, but you can't. It's hard to hit what you can't see. I mean, I think I wish more people would do matches like these. You see a lot of people online. I can hit a man-sized target at 800 yards with my iron sights, and it's like, well, what you're saying is a man-sized target's really like a very, very big target, because a man at 800 yards is, unless he's like wearing fluorescent clothes, like most people's clothes, you can't see it, and area effective fire takes a lot of ammo. I mean,
Man,
the one thing
I thought it was a pop can at 700.
Yeah.
I thought that was
Yeah.
the benchmark.
That's it did not work out so well. Yeah. I'll say, for me, the one thing I was happy about with my performance is, so I timed out on the 200s. Not real happy about that, but on that time, I never shot up a full magazine. So, it's one thing to not shoot well. It's another thing, especially in a run and gun, to burn a lot of ammo not shooting well. If it was a 3-gun match, I probably would have put a lot more rounds down range, because you just go back and reload your magazine, and it's no big deal. But a run and gun, you really have to be conscious of what rounds you're putting down range, which is not a bad skill to have. So that whole thing, I still ended up with, I probably took 15, 20 shots or something like that, maybe. So yeah, I don't even think I did that, because I know I had a decent amount of mags left. So for me, that I felt like that was a win in a bad situation. So
Yeah.
anything more before we go on, Mike?
So I see ROing a lot of people go to war. When you come into a stage like that, already have how many rounds you're willing to expend kind of hardwired into your brain. You will absolutely regret going to war and trying to hit a target. If you're just not connecting, just let it go. You're going to wish you had those rounds later in the match. We saw a lot of people running dry on the last 2 stages of Heartbreak this year, and it was not a high hit count match. At the end of the thing, we'll go over hits and rounds carried and such, but my you're done would have been if I shot an entire 35 round magazine at the long range stage. That was what I took, and that is all I would give myself. I carried more than I would have if I was shooting optics, knowing that there could be some situations where I was going to have to shoot some more to get the hit. But I had already decided that there was how much is too much moment. And for me, if I expended more than 35 rounds, it was not going to happen. I'll go to bolt lock and I'd be done on that stage. So that's kind of the shooting tip that goes with that stage is already have figured out in your mind how much you're willing to spend at each stage. You know, if you're over halfway through the match and you've shot really clean and you've done a great job, then maybe you can fudge your numbers on one stage. It's giving you a hard time just to try to avoid the penalties. But uh, in your first one or two stages in a match, do not go to war. Have those internal stops programmed in, and be conscious enough while you're shooting to realize where you're at with those. So that's my tip of the day for that stage.
Yeah, agreed. A good example. I got two good examples of that. Guardian last year, I burnt through a whole pistol mag, on the first stage before I even was done with the first stage. And at that point, I kind of clicked in my brain, okay, retard, you can't keep doing this. So from that point on, I did do a reload, so not quite what Mike's talking about, but I basically changed my shooting and said, okay, we're going to really slow down, and I hate to slow down and get your hits, but at that point in time, I need to slow down and focus more on my trigger control and what I was doing, and I was able to finish off that stage with almost no misses after that. Just from that, that was my, hey, this isn't working, On the flip side of that match, I ran one target left, pistol target left. I ran dry. So that was not good. A perfect example of this, though, what Mike's talking about, was Legion last year. I was ROing the long range, which went out to 600 yards. And I remember it really clearly. Brian Ray, who is a phenomenal competitor. I've seen him crush long range stage after stage. You had one target that you had to hit at 600 yards. And again, you could not move on until you hit that 600-yard shot. And he shot, I don't know how many shots, not a ton, but more than one or two at this target. And he said, "Can I just stop?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine." He's like, "All right, it's not happening today." Packed up his stuff, went sprinting off. For himself that day, he knew, whatever, this is not happening. Normally I can hit whatever distance that is. Today, it's not happening. I'd rather save the run time, save the ammo, save the timing out. And, because the only thing worse than not hitting that 600-yard target is at 30 seconds into the stage, is not hitting that 600-yard target 180 seconds into the stage. So I'm sure he really boosted his score up on that stage, kind of stopped the bleeding on what was not his, best stage that he has ever had, by just knowing that, hey, for whatever reason, this isn't going to happen today. I need to move on. That's a lot of, we come to these matches to shoot and hit things. So to say, hey, I'm cutting my losses, is kind of a hard skill to gain sometimes. And like Mike said, it is a good skill to have. You got to save that ammo for another fight, because we did have guys run out on stage 5 of the stage of with rifle ammo, and you still had one more stage of rifle and pistol. So running out at stage 5 is not conducive for a good score. And the thing is, if you're doing it on something you really struggle on, that next stage you have no ammo for, that may be the perfect stage that's right in your wheelhouse that you can crush, So, because, all these stages can be really different. I know Todd Banus was on Gun Stuff TV, and he said with the 6 stages, if you looked at the top 5 shooters of those six stages, there's 20 or 30 different shooters. So it wasn't like the same 5 people showed up to every stage and just crushed it. 30 different people showed up to each stage, these different stages, and crushed it. Because, you may be a solid pistol shooter and not a great rifle shooter, and this one stage just really hits your skill set, and this other stage doesn't. So that's good advice from Mike. So we'll go on. Mike, do you want to kind of take it from there?
All right. So
I guess plus challenge.
Yeah, the plus challenge for that one was an interesting one. The challenge was taking a 3-foot piece by probably 10-inch diameter chunk of cedar log and doing 40 air squats and full
I
kit.
think I think they said the logs were about 35, 40 pounds.
Yeah. So it's interesting because you're trying to figure out how do I hold this where I get good form and don't injure myself, and you got a rifle, hanging around you, and it was definitely interesting because I found out with the chest rig and the backpack and the angles, I could only go down to about my elbows, touch my knees. That squat was going to go without toppling over. And I talked to other plus competitors, and they kind of found the same thing on their trip through. So that was one of those things that it wasn't going to kill you, but it just took a little bit out of your legs that you knew you didn't really have to give because how difficult the course is. So that was a tough one in terms of you knew it was draining you. Even though you really weren't tired, you were going to regret it. After that, you dropped off the long range, the backside of there, and headed through the woods and popped out at the obstacle course. So the obstacle course was run in reverse this year, with plus competitors having to run the obstacle course twice. A couple of the obstacles weren't in play just due to the age and they haven't found replacements. But the plus competitors really got to enjoy the obstacle course because they did it twice, and the second time they had to take a cinder block through the course with them. So that was an interesting challenge all its own. And
Yeah, you're jumping ahead though, because before that was you go through the obstacle course and then you go to stage 3. So the
yeah, I was
whole
just covering
course
the O
is stage
course,
3. Yeah.
and so I didn't know how linear you wanted to stay. Apparently, we're going to stay very linear tonight.
I mean,
So, so once you got to the next stage, it was an interesting course of fire with uh, 3 required pistol hits and 15 required rifle hits. And the way they had the stage lined up was there was a target at, what would you say, 35 yards, maybe 30 yards,
say
and
35
it
yards,
was
right?
what, probably C zone. It was a decent sized plate hanging there.
I would say like 12 inches, maybe
Yeah,
14 inches, something like. Yeah, I mean, it
maybe
wasn't.
12 by 14 or something like
It
that.
was it was round. If I remember, it's like either round or square. So it wasn't like a whole like
Yeah, I
C
thought it
zone
was a
size, but
rectangle.
maybe it was. But it was pretty square, I thought,
Yep. So they
or
had marksman
even.
shooting boxes set up, where each box was about a 3 by 3 ish area. The sides weren't really marked. It was more the length of each box that was important. So you started with a loaded rifle, and at the beep, you had to fire around and then step forward, fire around, and step forward. So every time you broke a shot, you'd have to move to the box in front. And you would continue to do that until you had achieved 2 hits. Once you achieved your 2 hits, you would drop. I'm really not sure if our recording stuff is working. My screen just went black.
No, I can still see you, Mike.
Okay, cool.
I think we're
I
good.
thought. So the for your third shot, after you broke your second and went to take the third shot, you drop mag and run it like a high value target, and we you would hit or miss based off of that. Then you had to sprint up to the very front till you were probably 30 feet off the plate, and then you did it in reverse with your handgun. And the painful thing with the handgun was it was inverse of the rifle. The more you missed, the farther you got away from the target, versus the rifle, the more you missed, the closer you got. So that was an interesting challenge. Once you got your 2 hits with the pistol, you drop mag and do a high value style shot on the pistol target, holster up, and then sprint to the other side. The other side they had 5 targets set up, and you would crawl underneath some picnic tables that were stacked up, do probably about a 6-foot crawl into the shooting position, maybe 8, and then
On gravel.
on gravel, good old Heartbreak. And then uh, they had my guess would be 5-footish wide shooting box, maybe 4, with a barrel in the center of it. And then about 12 inches off the ground, 12 to, no, maybe 16 inches off the ground, there was a stick running across. So the way it worked was one of the ports you engaged from was essentially prone, right side of the barrel, in that like probably 8x16 port, 8x12 port. Then the other shooting position you engaged from was over the top of the barrel. And then the third position was from the left side of the barrel. And so it was pretty challenging because you couldn't really get full urban prone. They really were trying to force you to shoot left-hand rifle and right-hand rifle just because of those port positions. I couldn't because of my vision and not having a dot to work with my bad eye. So I kind of fudged and went urban prone. And then the very last shot on the left side of the barrel, I actually kind of held the rifle in front of me and lined up the sights like it was a handgun just to make it work. But that was 5 hits from each port for a total of 15 rifle hits. I guess a lot of people were struggling to clear that stage. It was definitely one that you kind of had to think your way through it and shoot pretty clean. I really enjoyed it. I don't think I had a stage win there, but it still was a really enjoyable stage for me that I enjoy those type challenges. How'd it go for you, Ryan?
Yeah, so I guess a couple things just to clarify as Mike was explaining it. So that first stage that you were in, the real challenge is if you didn't miss, you took 3 quick shots, rifle, you hit, you drop your magazine, you hit, and then you run up there with pistol and the same thing. The more you missed, the more time it took because you're not only is it a miss, but you've got to walk forward you got to move forward to the next box. So if you really shot rifle and pistol poorly, you would go up. I mean, I think the rifle each of them probably had 10 different positions that you would have to shoot from. So, yeah, I thought that was a neat challenge. Obviously, it really rewarded you for making your hits, with not missing. The other thing is when Mike's talking about those ports on the other side, they were set up with those 5 target arrays. On the left side, you had to get so close to the wall that, like Mike said, you really like the best way to do it if you have a good working left eye was to switch to the left side, because if you were on your right side, Mike said you had to go urban prone. It's very difficult. You couldn't just get up real close to it and still shoot off your right shoulder easily. You really had to kind of bump it over. And it was the same with the right side. When you got to that right side, it wasn't just like you could get close. You really had to get up to the edge of that wall to get those targets. So it was a really good kind of target array. It was a really good setup. It really made you work because it was an uncomfortable position. I mean, you're on the ground, like you said, not quite prone, but kind of still having to get up off the ground a little bit. I shot it all right. It took 1 or 2 positions for me to really be able to see the rifle target at that time of day. But after like the second position, I went 1, 2, 3, no problem. And pistol, I think I went 1 for 1 on those 3. I just had 3 shots. So that worked out fine. So after that, you had your plus challenge. And that was, man, I'm trying to think. Mike, what was the plus challenge there? Was that the get-ups?
Turkish get-ups, full kit.
Turkish get-ups. Full kit except minus the rifle, which they call these Turkish get-ups. you got a 70-pound sandbag plus your gear, so you really can't do a strict Turkish get up. So you're basically just holding a sandbag, getting down on the ground, getting on your back with it, getting, back up to like a seated, and then standing up. Or kneeling, however you chose to do it. But you had to do 20 of those. I think 20 of them. In the past, it was 10 in like a minute. This time, it was 20 in as much time as you wanted. Same kind of, I think every year it's the same weight. It's a 70-pound sandbag. And, 70 pounds, 30 on your back. Now you're up towards 100 pounds. It's a lot of weight for most people to be standing up off the ground. So that definitely sucked. And as Mike said, before you're doing 40 air squats. And I mean, I do a lot of squats in my workouts, but 40 at one time, even when you can take breaks, is a whole lot of squatting down. And then get ups, you're doing kind of the same, using a lot of the same muscles. So the 20 Turkish get ups really sucks. So I enjoyed it. I think Todd Banus is the one to blame for those. And he was there kind of watching me do it. And I made sure that I was all smiles so that he didn't know that he was getting close to breaking me. So, I kept telling him, like, 20 of these really isn't enough. You guys really need to double them. Every stage he was around when I was doing it, I was like, you guys need to double this next year. 20's not enough. 40's not enough. So, I don't know. I think that's probably not a popular opinion with most plus people, but that was definitely a good time. Excuse me. Yep. So, you got done with stage 3. As Mike said, the regular competitors now would do the other half of the obstacle course. The plus competitors got to do the whole obstacle course the second time, plus carry our concrete block. You carried it on everything but the really, really high wall. So they have one climbing wall that's, like ladder wall that's, I would guess, probably 12 feet high. Another one that's about, I think, 10 feet high that has like a bunch of tires on the face of it. Neither of those did you just could set it off to the side. For really obvious reasons. I mean, they want to challenge you. They want it to be tough, but you're already climbing ladders with 40, 50 pounds of extra weight, when you got your guns and ruck and all that. So another concrete block to kind of add weird weight would probably be a bad idea. I know the low crawl. I got this idea from Mike. I brought like a daisy chain, just a nylon webbing daisy chain, and I was using that to drag my ruck through. So I just strung it through the concrete block and kind of drug my ruck in my concrete block behind me as well. So that seemed to work out well. Anything else to add about the obstacle course, Mike, before we head on to stage 4?
Well, they didn't seem real happy when one of the plus competitors broke his center block into pieces. I was looking at it like, oh, that's a great way to do that, but apparently there was going to be consequences if you did it again.
They told me that you would have to go back and get another one and go through everything again. I guess he just had to carry him across in pieces, which I don't know is easier than carrying across in one piece.
Yep.
So obstacle course, you then head into the woods for a little while. It's a fun part of the course. It's kind of pretty. There's it's some heavy brush. You're going through some areas that are trails, some that really aren't trails. You're just following the ribbon. And you head up to kind of come around to stage 4. Mike, you'll have to refresh me on stage 4 now. That was Yeah. Do you remember stage 4? I'm drawing a blank right
Yep.
this second. I should wrote this down.
Yep. Stage 4 was a rifle pistol stage. You started on the right side and shooting about 50-ish yards through a port, low, so you kind of had to go prone. There's 3 targets you had to engage from the back right where you were, shooting up to the front left of the bay. Then you would move to another low port, re-engage those same 3 targets. This was with a rifle. Then you would sprint to the back left side, kneeling, and then I believe prone. There's 2 different
Uh,
positions you would engage.
I don't think it
Was
was
it
quite
kneeling and
kneeling.
prone?
It wasn't kneeling and prone per se. They had like a barrel that you shot across the top of on one, or a port, I think, and then a barrel on the other side. So you had to kind of get low, but it wasn't necessarily kneeling. And I'm fairly certain the last one may have been prone though. Was that the one where there's like a box cut kind of low down? I think it was like a high prone.
There was yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So two different
Uh,
rifle shooting positions.
Yep, your last. Well, there was technically 4 on that stage, 4 individual positions.
Yeah. I was just saying those after you ran, you had 2 over on that left side. Yeah, 2 on the right, 2 on the left.
Yep. Yeah, and then you would that last rifle shot was a high value style, so you drop mag, engage. Then you would set your rifle down, sprint up to the front, and then they had 8 pistol targets that you shot through a window at probably 30-ish feet. They were spread out across the back, so you kind of had to lean one way and then kind of lean the other as you shot across. And you did that shooting standing on top of a tire. So that was a very fun stage. I was told to just send around. It wasn't explained to me that that last shot with the rifle is a high value. So I just sent kind of an aimed round into the berm and then took off sprinting up, did the pistol work. Overall, I didn't drop a whole lot of shots. And I believe I ended up, even with that one penalty of the high value that wasn't really presented to me as a high value, I still believe I ended up with a stage win on that stage. I'll have to double check.
No, Scott Kiefner got the stage win on that.
I know Ben Isaacs mentioned a stage besides 5 that I had a win on. And
yeah, I'd have to double check, but I was pretty sure that Scott Kiefner mentioned that on the gun stuff that he had the stage win on that. But yeah, I mean,
it
you
was a
still
fun stage for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And again, the shooting positions weren't like crazy hard. It wasn't like you had to be a contortionist, but that stage was definitely like the first 2 were low, like prone, so getting in and out of position quickly. I do think those left 2 were still like a standing or hunched over. It wasn't, I don't think you had to get on the ground for either of those, but it was still about getting into position, getting stable quickly, and then getting up and moving quickly as well.
Oh, you'll have
And then,
to forgive me. It was stage 3 that I
yeah,
had a stage win on. It wasn't stage 4.
yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I thought Scott had one on 4, but yeah, and then that front part, you were shooting through a port, and they mentioned the wall was not stable enough to lean on, which is correct. But having said that, and this is something that I always try if they'll let me, especially because they weren't really that far, but you could stick your arms out and you could kind of rest your arm on the port a little bit, especially when you're like standing on a tire and it's not like super stable. If it's one-handed or if it's maybe a little bit weird of a situation, if I can even rest my arm up against something to get a little more stability, I'm always going to take that. So that definitely didn't hurt on that. You could kind of put up against it and just work your way across, and that was maybe some of the easiest pistol shooting in the whole match. you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was, well, I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if as long as you could stay somewhat stable, had enough balance on those tires, it really wasn't that bad of a shooting. So,
Right.
I had that one thing, I guess, we'll mention about the plus division or the heartbreak division with the ruck is that the rules beforehand, they stated that you had to start each stage with your full kit. We saw a lot of other people doing this, so more than just us figured it out. So I guess we can mention it here. But the kind of, I guess, gamer move, but I guess this would probably be the tactical move too. I don't know. I'm not into that, but was that as soon as the stage started, you just dropped your ruck on the ground. Trying to get up and down on the ground with these packs would have really slowed things down. And yeah, so most of the time you'd start with it on one shoulder or in your hand or something. So as soon as it beeped, you just dropped it. That first position, I actually dropped it in front of me so that when I went down, I kind of had a rest to, kind of lay on. So I wasn't like, I could just get up the ground a little bit. That wasn't necessary. They weren't really that hard of shots, but I had to drop it. I might as well drop it someplace useful. So that's something I did there. So yeah, after that, you had kind of a similar challenge to last year, a little bit different. They had a concrete block. Just imagine taking a 5-gallon bucket, filling up with concrete, and just putting a little eye hook in the top of it. You had to pick that up and carry it back and forth between two lines 6 times. So I don't know, the lines were 10 yards apart, if that, maybe 8 yards apart. Wasn't crazy long, but I think they're estimating, and I did the math last year, it's about a 90-pound block. So it's pretty small, dense block. A lot of people were just lifting it up. I guess we'll give a shout out to John Drosser, who he just hooked his middle finger in there at one point. Was able to lift it up and move it between positions with a single finger or two. So probably not advised, but impressive nonetheless. I think Mike had a similar strategy to me. I just pulled my daisy chain out. I actually threaded it through and grabbed one of the loops on each side and just lifted up, with each hand and just kind of waddled back and forth with it between my legs. That kind of kept you from having to bend down and like hoist the whole thing up, because part of that challenge was that when you got to the next line, you had to set it down before moving it back. So you couldn't just pick it up and walk and cross the line and then cross back. You were having to get down on the ground and put it back down, which takes, I mean, then it's squatting again, or I guess in this case, deadlifting. So being able to just kind of lift it a little bit, do like a half deadlift and just walk it back and forth seemed pretty advantageous. I don't know, is that how you handled it, Mike? I think I saw you use your carabiner.
Yeah, I just snapped my carabiner into the eyelet, but you could have done just run the webbing through just as easily, and it would have worked just as well.
Yeah, I liked it because
Ryan's been asking me to give some like plus and like difficult tips and tricks for a while now, and I've kept a lot of stuff close to my chest. But generally, the whole idea with these weight class games is to do as little work as possible. And so all these competitors that are bending over and picking it up and stuff, you're using muscles and way more of them than you need. So the strap where you can run it through something to pick it up or drag it is a fantastic way to manage energy output. So you heard it here. If you don't use it at the next match, we know you didn't listen to us.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take up much weight, and the way I did it, I had one in each hand, so you kind of can spread the load out a little bit more. But so that was that stage. After that, you got to everybody's favorite part, which is Stairway to Heaven. Last year they switched it up and they gave you the option on which way to run the traditional route. This year, you didn't have a choice, but they actually changed it up again. So we went down what is Stairway to Heaven, where you traditionally went up, which for those that haven't shot it, Stairway to Heaven is just a really, really steep hill. It's not a path. There's no, it's just, they just string up some, caution tape and trees, and you just try to follow that. It's fairly steep. You really need to be grabbing onto stuff the whole way down. It's not something that you could just walk down on your own without like grabbing onto trees or kind of taking going side to side. So maybe that gives you kind of an idea. Once you went down that, you hit the creek bottom we always hit. You walked along, and then before you get to, so in the past there was like a logging trail that you would end, or logging road that you would end up on. That's what I call it, but kind of a road that was going down there. Instead, before you got to that, there was a different and equally sucky stairway that you now went up. As steep, if not steeper, than the one that you just went down. So you just kind of hiked your way up that. I mean, it's pretty steep. Like I said, I guess maybe the tip for the weight division here is you're very deliberate on stuff like that. This is the only part of the course that I actually stopped moving on at any point, and it wasn't like a fitness or I'm catching my breath. You would kind of get to sections, and then you kind of survey and look around. Where's the next safe place to go? I know our friend Ryan Hemingway said he fell like 20, 30 feet down the hill before something stopped him. And that's, when you've got extra weight and guns and stuff like that, webbing all over the place, that's a bad, it's a bad thing to happen. So, when you got the weight division, when you're doing a lot of this stuff, and it's the same for the obstacle course. There's a couple other crossings that when you got weight on your back, you really have to be conscious of how you're getting up things, over things, around things, because too much of your weight goes in one direction, your whole body starts going that way, and you could really hurt yourself. I mean, I know at one point it was just a flat area. I was like crossing a log or something. I fell, and my gun being on my back clubbed me in the back of the head. If that was on a hill, that could have been really bad. So yeah, you came up Heartbreak Hill into stage 5. Did you have anything to add about Heartbreak Hill, Mike?
Well, it sucks. Yeah, this definitely comes back to a conversation I've had with a few people now about running weight class stuff. Weight class is about risk mitigation to prevent injury. It's great if you're moving across the course pretty quickly, but if you're not careful and injure yourself, all that speed was for nothing. For me, I felt like the biggest risk was dropping down into the river valley. Um, but still, both sides, if you slipped or made a mistake, it was a very high penalty. So I kind of zigzagged and went tree to tree on the way down, tried to be very careful of my knees to prevent kind of shock or over stress as I was moving downwards. And then once I got to the upward section, I knew it was going to be a suck fest. But my general goal with those is just don't stop moving. You don't have to move the fastest in the world, just don't stop. And I was actually able to catch some guys on climbing up there um, just because I didn't stop. One thing that I do when it comes to some of those steeper ascents, and especially as the trail gets worn throughout the weekend, is the top layer of soil where there's any vegetation or structure from roots normally gets worn away and it'll get very slick, maybe rocky. So I'll kind of zigzag across the face that I'm climbing, going kind of tree to tree to make sure I have something that, number one, if I start to slip, I can grab. And then number two, to look for that pretty good, sure footing and try to avoid those tumbles. If you feel like you're starting to kind of maybe topple or whatever, that the one thing to do yourself a favor is just sprawl out. If you think that you're going to topple backwards or slide or anything, just sprawl out prone. Uh, if you're going to slide backwards, sliding on your belly or on your back is not going to be near as bad as cartwheeling end over end. So take your time. The ascents are difficult. Heartbreaks, they definitely throw you for a loop every time. So just be careful. Kind of know your limits and plan your path going up. So that was my thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, but I will say it's a very pretty part of the course. I mean, you go over some big, kind of these big rock shelves that I'm guessing there's probably some caves in there. I know there's some caves on the property. But you're in some areas that not a lot of people go, so it is really, really pretty. There's tons of, even though it was end of February, there's wildflowers coming up. I mean, I saw a bunch of trillium and some other little stuff starting to pop its head up. So it's just a really pretty part of the course. So it is fun to go through. So after this, and this is part of the new thing, you hop out right at the entrance of stage 5. So Mike, that's really loud.
Sorry.
I don't know.
I had to get in the fridge.
So you pop out at 5. 5 was the stage that me and Mike worked. We had our friend Daniel Arterburn, and then we had Aaron Coots there as well. So it was a really fun squad to RO with the whole weekend. So starting on, and it was a 2-bay stage. So they had 2 different bays with a berm between them. You started on the rightmost berm, kind of behind a barricade wall. And you had a plate rack in front of you with 6 plates and then a little static piece of steel off to the side. So on the beep, you shot from the left of the wall, you shot 2 plates. From underneath the wall, you shot 2 plates. Right of the wall, you shot 2 plates. So 2, 2, 2. There's just 6 plates on your plate rack. Drop your magazine, remaining round in your gun. You shoot the static steel, which is your high value target. Holster that empty pistol. You would then run up the berm that separates the 2 and go under a wall. So they had a wall there, so maybe like a 3-foot opening or something like that. Go under the wall, get over to the other side, and there's a big solid barricade wall. From behind the wall, you made your rifle hot. Downrange, you had 2 of the Throom targets. They were the little bit bigger, so I think they're about 4 inches, if I had to guess. 4.5 inches. So rifles loaded now. From the right side of the wall, you would make a hit on each of those. The left side of the wall, you would make a hit on each of those. So 2 hits right, 2 hits left. Run parallel to the backstop over to a set of 3 car tires. In front of those car tires, you had 2 barrels with a stick going across it. So with your whole body being supported by the barrels, your whole body being supported by the tires, so that means standing on the tires, not on the ground between the tires or any of that, you had to shoot those same 2 throoms with your muzzle shooting over the sticks, 2 through below the sticks. So a lot of people stood up to shoot the top 2. A lot of people went prone on the under the stick. That wasn't a bad way. The way I did it, and I think if you were stable enough, was to kind of a high kneeling, sitting upright, shoot 2 over the stick, and then kind of crouch down and shoot 2 under the stick. It's a little quicker to get in and out of. It was fairly stable. Standing on those tires wasn't the most stable thing. Once that was done, your stage was finished. I did pretty well on it. I had a little problems with the pistol, but I think that was just from Heartbreak and the steroid of heaven and just being a little smoked. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't my best stage, but I shot it okay. It was definitely an interesting stage to RO. You saw a lot of interesting positions and people doing things. A lot of people went either kneeling or prone on the barricade wall. It was a pretty solid wall, so there really wasn't a lot of reason I saw to do that. Here's maybe my shout out for the steady rest. With these bigger wings, you can actually like press it up against the wall, kind of like hold your hand there, and that kind of keeps your gun from bouncing around because it makes that soft on hard. And then when you get to the left side, you just do the opposite. This side's resting on it, and you're kind of using your hand to pin it against the wall to kind of stabilize a little bit. So a lot of awkward positions or things like that steady rest can be kind of handy for that, or the similar thing, because those wings are just soft enough that when you press against it and it's shooting, you're not getting kind of weird recoil. If you set your hand guard down on top of a barrel, you set it on something else hard. Sometimes, depending on how solid you can get with your hand, you get kind of weird recoil or bounce around a little bit more than like resting hand on wall and setting the gun on your hand. So I kind of like the steady rest for that. Mike, you have anything thing to add?
Stage 5 as a whole was just shoot your sights. It was one of those things that if you had your sights and lined them up on the plates and had a good clean trigger press, you were going to go through that stage pretty quickly on the pistol side. Don't overthink getting down in position. I was able to shoot it from kneeling with no issues from kneeling. I had issues, but that's something I'll brush on here in a minute. And then tackling the up and over center of the wall is it's kind of important when you see those things coming to realize that, hey, I need a little speed to boost to get up over it, and then have a plan for the obstacle at the top. Sliding underneath the wall at the very top of the divider wall in the bays was one of those things. If you would come into it with a plan and a little momentum, you could slip right under it. But I saw a lot of people that lost their momentum at the top and kind of stuttered trying to figure out, how am I going to get through here? And we saw guys kind of muzzle plant a couple times. So that was something to be conscious of. Muzzle awareness is always key in the stage. And
Yeah,
so from the right.
I was going to jump in there. The other thing that I saw, and I didn't want to forget this, is a lot of people kept their rifles on the back. Because I forgot to mention this. You had to start with the rifle slung. So most people just kept it slung the whole time, which makes perfect sense. Start with it slung, keep it slung. If there's no reason to take it off. But once you got done with the pistol and you holstered, there was like zero reason not to, as you're running towards that hill, because you had a good 10 yards or so, to start whipping that gun off your shoulder and getting ready to get under that wall. I mean, this is one of those things when they tell you about a little pre-planning, say, hey, once I'm done shooting, I better pull this rifle off, because having a 16-inch barrel sticking off your back is not a real good way to get through a small opening. So I don't know how much of that you saw too, Mike.
Yep. Similar thoughts all the way around on that. Prepping your gear pre-stage and during the stage for the different segments that you're tackling is crucial to your overall success. And it's going to buy you time that if you do have issues, you can use it solving issues. So coming over there, moving into the rifle portion, it was a lot of understanding height over bore. These throoms and these height over bore targets have become very popular. Let's see, they were at Heartbreak last in 2022, Guardian 2022, Legion 2022. They might come into play at Zombie 2022, depending on what your engagement looked like. And then back to Heartbreak 2022, here they are. So these close range throoms are here to stay. So, folks, we really don't have an excuse as a community as to why we're still struggling with them. So, learn your height over bore. It's a very simple process. It can be done very affordably as well. If you knew them, you could come in and shoot the stage very cleanly. So, the tire challenge, I saw a lot of people, even as they were slick on competitor day, a lot of people just kind of overthought the process. Getting on in a position, or they just were bound determined to do the whole thing from kneeling on a tire. I climbed on, engaged over the bar standing, and then just dropped to a seated position to shoot under the bar. And it was just a very simple way to get my engagements and not have to worry about my height over bore and actually shooting the stick divider that told you what was above and what was below. There was a few times that I found myself yelling height over bore at shooters because they were getting ready to burn around right into that part of our barricade. Now, moving back to this thing I mentioned earlier, shooting the pistol. Uh, Shooting your sights was really important, and I managed to walk away with a stage win with a shooter-induced malfunction on my handgun. And what happened was every stage I had pulled my uh, gloves off to shoot, and at this one, it just didn't cross my mind. And so moving from shooting the plates in the first position to the left of the wall to underneath the wall in the second position, apparently when I broke that last shot, I'm a very thumbs high shooter, and I slowed down the slide enough that it failed to go into battery. So I look down, well, I do a tap rack, and as I'm getting ready to let the slide roll forward for my tap, I realize that the failure to go into battery left the round in the chamber. So I was getting ready to double feed, and so I had to let the slide down, strip the magazine, rack, insert the magazine, recharge the gun, and re-engage. And I was able to do all that malfunction clearance and come out with a stage win. And it was a pucker factor for me the rest of the weekend because we had guys like Brian Ray coming through, Brian Vaught coming through. It was great to see him out. Hadn't seen him for a little while. Guys like Ben Isaacs, who's been pushing very hard to improve his run and gun shooting and his pistol skills. I think he just made USPSA master. So I knew there was guys out on the course who absolutely had the ability to take that stage win from me because of that malfunction. But being stage 5 and how tired everyone was, there was a whole lot of missing going on and guys running dry on pistol and things. So again, shoot your sights, take your time, get your hit. It's going to pay off more than rushing and just mag dumping. One thing I was going to brush on was at this point, I also noticed some shooters showing up with red dot optics that were completely packed with mud. I've run open emitters for matches. I've won matches with open emitter red dots. If you take care of your gear, it'll take care of you. But pay attention to how you're moving through terrain, obstacles. Don't pack your open emitter red dots with mud. And if you do have an issue, get it taken care of before you go hot on a stage. So that's kind of my thoughts after shooting stage 5. Really enjoyed it. The plus challenge was a good one as well.
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback on what Mike said. A lot of people come through with guns, not just optics clogged up with mud, but pistols and rifles. And, I've been through some pretty darn muddy run guns and low crawl. My number one concern is keeping mud off my guns and magazines.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have guns that I have guns that run really, really reliably. Like I couldn't tell you the last time I had a gun malfunction that wasn't using like was just talking about. But guns they don't work. I don't care what you have. I've seen AKs go. I've seen AR down, or forgotten weapons or in range. If you get enough button to the right part of a gun, it's mechanical, it will fail. So just plan on keeping crap out of your gun. I mean, that should be your number one goal.
Yep, absolutely. I just see so many guns that are just absolutely coated, and flying through an obstacle course or making it up a really muddy hill really fast is absolutely not worth the reward if you tank your shooting stage, and there's a lot of guys out there that like to look at run and gun as a test of real life. And, if you think you're going to be in some sort of real life situation and your running gun performance is some sort of way to measure that, if you're not taking care of your equipment, it won't take care of you. Obviously, you can try to run certain gear that mitigates that risk, certain holsters like the Safari Lance 6390 RDS, and trying to make sure you close dust port covers on ARs, running a closed emitter optics like Acros or the Steiner, I think the MPS, things like that. But ultimately, you just have to take care of your equipment. I'll absolutely happily trade 2 or 3 minutes on an obstacle course to make sure that my gear is in perfect running condition for a shooting challenge. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that. If you want to move into the plus.
Yeah, so the plus challenge, probably the second easiest plus challenge, I think, after the whole concrete block over your head, and that was tire flip. So I had a decent sized tire. You flipped it 15 times. I'll say it was light enough. You could grab the top lip on the inside and lift it up enough to get your hands under it and flip it from there. Again, if I don't have to squat down with 30-pound pack, rifle, pistol, all that, if I don't have to do a squat to pick it up, if I can just grab it and lift, use my arm, I'm going to use my arms. Because I use my arms a lot less in a running gun than I do my legs. So, I don't know that there's anything to add to that, Mike. There wasn't a whole lot with that.
Nope. Just try to do it efficiently in a way that's not going to burn you out. Understand your pacing.
Yep. So from there, you headed towards what would be base or stage 6, but right before you get there, there's a cut into the woods. So you go trucking through some more woods. You make it onto a road. This road caused a lot of people problems. I don't know why. I know some of our friends even ran in this issue, but they had a sign that said 74.6 yards ahead, take a left or something like that, So it had a specific distance on there. As an aside, just from running matches and stuff, I joke around, I've got a pretty calibrated stride. I can stride off 10 yards to know, and hit it with a rangefinder. I'm pretty darn close. So I counted 74, 75 yards. And if you looked off to your left, there was a cut path in the grass, and there's a whole bunch of ribbons you could see. And actually, before you got to that, if you looked off to the side, you could see a ribbon tied in the high grass. But once you got to that 74 and looked, it was really obvious where you went. Some people apparently didn't see that sign, or if they saw it, they didn't count or have a good estimation because they kept going. If you kept going and past that area, eventually you got to a place where if you looked off to the right, you could see some of the, caution tape that took you back into the course and dumped you right back out at stage 5. So we had 1 or 2 people show up at stage 5 again. But if you didn't, you followed that path. It took you to around the pond they have there. You kind of looped around. You actually came back up the same path. You could see where you dumped out. But you head to a right. You head through some more kind of thick forest. And this had happened after they marked the course. But there's a big down tree you had to get over. So you got over the down tree, and it dumped you off in their pistol bay areas. Their main pistol bay pit where they do USPSA matches and stuff. And from there you had stage 6. Stage 6, I'll be honest, when I got there and they started explaining it to me, what all was going on, I asked, I said, you have to neutralize every target before going on, because I didn't think I was going to finish it. There was just a lot of shooting. Mike, since I'm coughing, do you want to kind of cover what's going on?
Yeah. So this stage was your lovely VTAC board, that many in the run and gun community love to hate, with throoms. So it was the double whammy apocalypse of things that could go wrong at a running gun. So relatively close range throoms. They had two of them hanging, so you could alternate one hit to each one. So in case they were still moving, so you ran all the ports of a VTAC board through into throoms. So you need to know not only your height over bore, but then how are you going to hold at your 90 degrees, 45 degrees with close range throoms as well. What if you cleared that with your rifle? You could grab a sea bag with probably 45, 50 pounds. You had to run up, toss it through a 20-foot section of corrugated drain pipe, probably 3.5, and maybe 36-inch diameter. Probably makes sense for size. And once you push that through, you popped out on the other side. And I believe they had 5 pistol targets. They had to be engaged from the left side of a barricade, left hand, right side of the barricade, right hand, and then you move to a shoot box about 15 feet to the right, and you could engage them freestyle. It was a whole lot of hits and a whole lot of not enough time. And I had a very similar thought to Ryan. Is I came up shooting irons and felt like I was shooting 75% of my optics capability. So not too hateful. And they gave me that stage brief, and I really was like, ooh, man, this sounds like a failure to complete possibility for me. I was very fortunate that I worked the VTAC and didn't drop a round, which shocked me as much as I think it shocked Tim Cox. And if I dropped one, maybe it was one, but it was still a clean enough run that he and I were just kind of blown away. And then ran up to the tunnel. I tossed the sea bag as far as I could, or the duffel, and got about 2/3, almost 3/4 of the way through the pipe. Shimmied through there, pushed it out the other side, and then engaged the pistol targets. While I didn't shoot it as clean as I would have liked to have, I shot it clean enough to complete the stage without running out of time. That it was definitely some pucker factor because I knew I was getting towards the end. Ryan, how'd you do on that?
Yeah, the VTAC went fairly well. I didn't drop a whole lot of shots on the top parts. Actually, I didn't drop a whole lot of shots in general. The lower ports, especially the really small ones where you have to get really low, I struggled a little bit getting into position. I think some of that was not being as comfortable with irons. Some of it was I just don't practice that enough. So that's on my list to start practicing is those lower ports, because anytime I have to get down there, it's really hard for me to find my position. I guess to the credit, one thing with irons is that, which I guess is the same for red dots, is that you really don't have to worry about eye relief. When you start getting down into positions like that, actually, that is definitely where a red dot shines over top of a scope. Because sometimes with the scope, depending on how generous your eye box is, it can be really hard to get into position and see that. With irons, you don't have to worry about how close your eye is to it. You do still have to kind of line that up. Whereas with a red dot, as long as you can get that, see the red dot and see it on that target, you're good to go. But I did all right with the rifle. I need to practice those lower positions. I tried to give a good toss. I didn't have as much energy in me, so that bag didn't go quite as far through as I would have liked. But what I did find was that if I put my hands on it, I could lift my knees off the ground and basically like push it like a sled. So I'm running with my knees off the ground. My hands aren't, on the ground. They're just on the bag. And I'm kind of like pushing it through. So I got it through, and I probably dropped 2, maybe 3 shots at most in all 3 positions on the pistol. And again, this is another situation. You have like a wall there, and you really don't have, it's not strong enough to like really lean your weight into it, but it is stable enough that if you can just rest your arm against it, you could stable yourself up a little for one-handed shooting. And if I've just got one hand shooting, anything I can do to get myself a little bit of extra support is good. I guess the tip trick thing I've seen a lot of, I saw people do it over that weekend, and I've seen them do it other places, is I'm pretty hesitant to rest my gun against the surface, whether it's the bottom of the gun or the side or my hand. You see a lot of malfunctions because people get their gun too close to walls and stuff like that, and it keeps the slide from reciprocating. But even resting the bottom, and maybe it's just me, there's been times where I'm resting on the bottom, and the way it recoils, it just seems like it throws my point of impact off from my point of aim for some reason. Just I don't know if it's just me or something else, but I'd rather rest like my forearm or my wrist or something, just close enough to keep stable. Yeah, I finished it. Had a little bit of time, but not a ton of time left. So, but I think just finishing it definitely did something for my score, because I know on RO day, 29 of the 40 shooters that went through didn't clear it. So that's like what, 11 shooters actually completed the course out of 40. So that's not a real high success rate, and nothing was impossible. It's just by that point, this stage, you're pretty smoked. So I guess if you don't have anything else to add, Mike, do you want to go on to the plus challenge? Because I hated it.
Oh my gosh, that plus challenge was absolutely brutal. I have not seen a plus challenge that absolutely wanted to break a man like that one. The plus challenge was, they called them man makers. So full kit, including rifle, burpee with a cinder block. 25 of them. And you have to remember, this is after all the other plus challenges with full kit. So you're doing your push-up with, since your rifle and your pistol and everything are on you, you're doing your push-up with probably an extra 40 pounds. Actually, it's probably closer to an extra 45, if we're being honest, between a rifle and a pistol. So you're doing your push-up with that extra weight, and then when you do the burpee at the very top, you stand up, and as you stand, you lift the cinder block over your head. It has to be the most miserable I've been at a running gun in terms of doing something physical in the moment for a very long time. And I think Dixon probably enjoyed it about as much as I did. And then I had to stand there and watch our good friend Ryan Hemingway do it. And
Dude,
I absolutely was rooting for that man so hard, because I felt every single bit of his pain watching him. That dude is an absolute stud for sticking to it when I knew that he was absolutely shot at that point. So, Ryan, thumbs up to you, bro.
yeah, absolutely. So he had fallen down the hill before he got to 5. And when he showed up to 5, he told me, he's like, I don't care what it costs me. I'm not doing either of the last 2 plus challenges. And I was like, listen, I get it if you're not going to do 6. I said, 5 is easy. This tire flip is really not that bad. So he's like, all right, I'll try. So he did the tire flip. He had no problems. He got to 6. And since he was the last guy through the course, we had already kind of torn down stage 5. Me and Mike were over there waiting on him. And for one, me and Mike were like, well, one of us is going to have to go with him through the rest of the course, because he looked pretty rough at that point. And, we figured the morale would be good for him and want to make sure he's safe and all that. But so he gets finished, and we're like, listen, everyone's like, I forget who was like, give this a try. Like, just try it. And he absolutely manned up and just toughed it through those. And, the push-ups were, I mean, he was, it was rough, and above the head, I mean, there was definitely no enthusiasm, but he absolutely crushed it. And he crushed the stage. I mean, he shot the stage amazingly for how rough he looked walking up. mean, he looked like death on 2 feet, and he absolutely crushed it. So yeah, like Mike said, kudos to him because it's a tough match, and Ryan's done tough matches, so he did the Gambit Challenge last year, so he's not a Wolverine. I know he shot on Team Wolverine with us not on our team, but at Wolverine last year, and so he's done tough, grueling matches, and it was no joke this year, the amount of stuff you had to do and how long you took. So kudos to him. So you finish up, you head up a small gravel hill up along the tree line, and then you head back into the woods. You got another about mile to the finish line. So I know when I went, Mike was nice enough to kind of meet me out there because I was late in the day, and he had finished up ROing, and he was nice enough to walk. I had to drive the truck up. He walked Ryan Hemingway that last way, and I went down and met him, probably similar to where Mike met me. But so you head through the woods, you come up, you come to the finish line. For the average competitor, you cross the finish line and you are done. You're happy, you finished your match. It was tough, but you made it. For plus challengers, if you've done it in the past, there's almost always something waiting for you. So this year was no exception. They had like 300 feet of rope or something, like 200 feet of rope, like the kind of bigger diameter rope they use, like the battle ropes and stuff. And they just had a big pile of it, and you just had to do a rope pull. You just pulled for what felt like an eternity. Just continue to pull till you pulled all the rope up to you. Really not that bad of a challenge, especially after the man makers, but still a lot of work, and it was definitely obnoxious. And unlike previous years, normally you just do one thing, you're done. This year they had 2 challenges at the end. Mike, do you want to share the murder bunnies, I think is what they called them?
Yeah, these murder bunnies are the weirdest thing. So you bent over and did this like bunny hop, but you did it with a cinder block. And you did it for what, probably 30 feet? It was just enough that each one sucked, but you knew that you were over the hill and sucked, and so you were just going to complete them. It was strange. Yeah. I don't know what else
Yeah,
to tell you about
and again,
that.
you got your pack on, you got your rifle on, you got your pistol. So you're like, you move it forward, the concrete block forward, and then you just hop up towards it with your feet. So my hops were not far. They were not enthusiastic because I just didn't have a lot of muscles. I mean, by that point, my the quad muscles right above my knee, kind of inside above my knee, were absolutely locking up. Like that last mile, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to keep walking just because they were just so tight, I had a hamstring trying to lock up. So my hip flexors are just, they're pissed off, they're tired of this. So it's just that one more little thing. I got to try to like hop my weight and all this extra weight forward, and then move it with your arms and then hop forward. It wasn't bad. But by that point, you're just so smoked. It's hard to do anything. So yeah, that's the end of and then you finish that. That was the end of the course. I guess we could do a wrap up, Mike. You want to do your kind of final thoughts?
Yeah, so kind of circling around to this match, they did not tell you what the hit count was. So there was guys talking about bringing 200 rounds for each gun. I thought that it was probably more of a mind game than anything. So I took more than my average loadout would have been for Heartbreak, but still I didn't go crazy. I went 126 rounds pistol and 160 rounds rifle. I counted my rounds at the end of the match, and I had 66 pistol rounds left and 86 rifle rounds. The used amount was 60 pistols, 74 rifle, with going over stage descriptions and other shooters, I believe there was 51 pistol hits and 59 rifle hits. That leaves 9 pistol hits that were either misses or lost during malfunction clearance or show clear, and either 15 misses slash rounds lost during show clear. So, considering that was done without optics, I was pretty shocked with that, and honestly pretty happy. I walked away with the win for the Heartbreak Plus division. So kind of killed my white whale there at Heartbreak, won a heavy weight class after last year fighting injury, couldn't do it. Um, so yeah, pretty happy with how that went. And then was very, very pleasantly surprised to come away with 2 stage wins and 4th place overall shooting, running against guys with optics or in many cases multiple optics. So yeah, no complaints there. Had a great time. Really, really enjoyed the match. Enjoyed the match directors and other staff did a fantastic job of running the match. Dixon and I did our best to make sure people wouldn't get lost when we went and cleaned up some of the old trail markings. But if you don't know how far 75 yards is, that's kind of on you. We can't save you from yourself. But it was a great match. Had a lot of fun. Just want to thank the sponsors that came out. Magpul stepped up and donated to the prize table very generously, and I was fortunate enough to snag some another pair of Magpul sunglasses. I've got my first pair off the Heartbreak prize table, and I've been using them for a few years now, and I've been really, really happy with them. So I got home, and I think my wife called dibs on that new set. So really happy with those. I know Crate Tactical, Fox Jewelers, Vortex, many others donated to the prize table. I think White Oak came back again in a big way. I saw an upper, and yeah, so I was really
Big
yeah. Go
Puma
ahead.
gear. Big Puma
Yep,
gear.
yep. Niles with Big Puma gear. He stepped up and put some of his custom kydex on the table, and I saw Bluegrass Targets was there, and got a pretty cool thing from them and my friend John Stoner. So shout out to Justin and all the team at Bluegrass and my fellow Coal Warrior guys that were rooting for me. And
Cert,
of course,
Cert had some. I got some web gear or some nylon gear from there.
awesome.
Yeah.
So it was really a great event. Great sponsors, of course, Run and Gun Tactics. They sponsored and put some stuff on the prize table. And we saw a lot of Run and Gun Tactics, the steady shot out there. I expect that we're going to see more and more of these really handy little bag systems coming out and on shooters' guns throughout the upcoming shooting season. I bet we'll see more of them at Guardian than we saw at Heartbreak. And of course, Guardian's a good place to have those. So really enjoyed it. Looking forward to seeing more of the run and gun community at our next matches that we attend. So, yep.
Yeah, and actually, I think we may do. I don't know if I'll do it myself or we'll get some people on here. I've actually got 3 different versions of 3 different companies' versions of like a handbag, a handguard handbag. I may kind of compare and contrast those at some point. Maybe I'll get Mike on there because he's used the steady shot. But I think that may be a future episode. As far as me, Heartbreak, that's the worst I've shot in a run and gun in a long time. Part of that, this is my first match doing the heavy division. I typically run light stuff. I've run plates before, but I've never run like a full ruck. I was probably a little conservative on my run time because I just didn't know what I was in for. Iron sights didn't help me. I shoot them okay. I mean, I still had some decent stages, but it definitely did not shoot as well as I would have liked. You'll have that. The course really kicked my butt. I went late Friday, which nutrition wise, I always go into it like I know I'm ROing, but I'm gonna make sure I'm eating and I'm drinking and I'm doing this. and you have a steady stream of shooters come through, and you don't have time to do it. So it is when you RO, and that's the amazing thing with Mike doing well. The stages, and it's not anything on any RO or match director, because it's literally like this at every run and gun match. It's like this at every 3-gun match. When you're shooting RO day, it's just chaotic. The stage briefs aren't kind of nailed down yet. Sometimes you're getting different ROs instead of who would normally RO it or who are in the rest of the week. You're also working, especially at a run and gun. You're working and shooting, and the same with 3-gun, because you're ROing and resetting. And more of the story is, it's really hard to do well and shoot well when you're ROing and you're working the match. It's amazing Mike did as well. I didn't, just for the reasons stated, and actually I did more dry firing leading up to this match than I have in a long time. So I was really I was really confident I was going to shoot irons well. It didn't happen. I definitely don't have the time to practice like I used to, so I kind of take my performance with it just is what it is at this point in time. I had a blast at the match. Overall, I was pretty happy with my fitness. It really did beat me up, but overall, like the weight stuff, the different challenges, I felt like I had the strength and energy to do them. So I was happy with that. I found some areas that I'm still going to continue to work on. That's kind of what this sport's about. What shooting can I work on? What do I need to work on with my rifle? What do I need to work on with my pistol? What fitness stuff? I lift 5 days a week. I run, I try to run 2 days a week right now. It's been a little bit less because of life, but still get out and get some running in. So, but it finds like, what can I do to improve myself? Running gun's not the ultimate test of fitness, but I would make a pretty good argument that it is a pretty good test of general fitness. Being able to run a marathon is great. That there's a lot of skill to that. There's a lot of fitness involved with that. There are a lot of people who could run a marathon that if you ask them to pick up a 70-pound sandbag, pick it up deadlift, 500-pound deadlift, and they get winded walking up a flight of stairs. Or if you ask them to run a 5K, they'd be out of luck. That's people pick their fitness in the world. And same with shooting. There's guys that can shoot pistols lights out that you hand them a rifle or a shotgun and they just have no clue. I think what attracts me to run and gun is what attracted me to 3-gun. And it's run and gun is this way with fitness and shooting, is that you really have to be well-rounded. Mike's a good example. Mike's a good pistol shooter. He's a good rifle shooter. If you took Mike to a USPSA match, my guess was he'd probably shoot B, maybe A. Maybe, he would not be a grandmaster pistol shooter. He would not be a grandmaster or a master pistol shooter even. Because of this, those are really, really narrow, specific skills to get there. If you took him to a PRS match, it'd be the same thing. He's probably not going to be the top shooter in there. But Mike is really pretty darn solid. He's going to shoot 50, 60% at the PRS match. He's going to shoot 50 or 60% at the USPSA match. A little higher at the 3-gun match because that's something we do more of. But now you add all those skills together, and he's a top 5% shooter on most stages because he's just well-rounded. That's what it takes to be a good run and gun shooter. Being an amazing pistol shooter is not going to do it if you're not a good rifle shooter too. And with that, being able to run for 100 miles is not going to do it if you can't also move a sled or do a dummy drag or something like that. You really need this good kind of balance of fitness. I think Heartbreak did a great job of kind of testing all of that, which I think it does every year. We got great. We didn't mention it. We got great weather on RO day. The competitors, early in the day, it rained a little. later on in the day, it was actually a pretty nice day, short of they dealt with a little bit more mud than us. Some years we've got crappy weather, so that really adds to the challenge. But yeah, this year it was a great course. It was great stages. There's a bunch of match directors. I'm not even want to start naming them because I know they have like 5, 6, 7 guys that are all part of making this match happen, and they all do their own little thing. I guess I'll mention Stuart, and Alan Carmichael and Todd Booth are kind of the 3 real main match directors. They're the ones who you see a lot more out there on match day. Those guys do a phenomenal job. Everyone did a phenomenal job this year. The ROs were great. So I hate to recommend this match because I know it sold out in like 40 seconds this year. But since I RO it and I get in for free because I RO it, absolutely, if you can add this match to your schedule, do it because it will test you. I don't know anyone who finished that match and felt like they were just ready to crush it again. I mean, you really were challenged by the end of it. So anything to add to that, Mike?
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's a great test. I don't want to encourage match directors to one up each other because I feel like that's been the last few years in terms of let's one up each other with difficulty. But I definitely have to say, Heartbreak, just the flavor of it between the physical challenges for the guys that want to play in that class and the shooting challenges of trying to shoot these stages while exhausted is a fantastic time. Absolutely. It's difficult to perform well on RO day just because stage briefs aren't as ironed out. And the herd of elephants haven't gone through the woods, blazing a clear trail to follow, which it makes it a little bit easier to get lost. You have to slow down a little bit to check your navigation. But it was a phenomenal match. I really thoroughly enjoyed all the stages. I enjoyed the camaraderie. I felt like the ROs did a really good job of presenting the stages in a really shootable manner. I felt like all the stage briefs were pretty clear, except for maybe just one or two little things. And really, for an RO day stage brief, that's a great match. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to go down there and staff it, and I hope I get invited back to work again as an RO. I really enjoyed ROing with, of course, Ryan and Daniel and Aaron are phenomenal guys to RO with. I was really excited to see some of the guys that normally run the lightweight classes come out and play in the heavy class. I think that some of them enjoyed it. They definitely learned the lessons that are associated with it. And if you have any questions about some of those heavy class things, I'm sure that you could go back to some of our previous episodes to get some intel on what I've done in the past and what other guys have done to be successful. So, yeah, just really, really happy with how the match went, and it has me really excited, looking forward to Guardian, which they announced is going to be July this year instead of August, I believe. So it sounds like
Yeah, that won't be hot.
Yeah, they're going to build another difficult match, I'm sure, and we'll do our best to make sure as ROs that people enjoy their time. So, yep, really excited. Just want to thank again just all the sponsors that came out and supported the match, and guys that have supported Ryan and I and getting there and getting our gear squared away, like of course Dustin at CV Guns. He's been pretty instrumental in helping us recently with some of our NFA needs and some other stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing on the shooting year and seeing what it has in store for us. So big double thumbs up to Heartbreak. Can't wait till Heartbreak
Yep,
2024.
absolutely. And they really, I'll say, they haven't continued to try to one up themselves in a way that I think is detrimental. They've been a hard match, and they add harder things, but it's not been crazy. So I think there is a little bit of settling down where people are going, well, let's not all get too crazy with one-upping each other. So yeah, I think as of now, I'm planning on doing the weighted division at Guardian as well. I've done it once, I like to keep trying that a little bit longer and see how I perform. And I don't know, maybe we'll do a whole. I keep trying to talk to Mike about it. Maybe we'll do a whole episode on like the weight class divisions, and we don't have to give out all Mike's secrets, but maybe kind of giving people some information on some ways to do that and what to maybe even just what to expect, and I don't, neither of us are like, we're not professional athletes, we're not professional coaches. We may be able to give out a little bit of advice as like exercises and things that we have done leading up to matches that we think maybe are helpful, and some stuff that maybe we think's not helpful. Because I know on the run and gun discussion group, me and Mike talk about it. We see things and we see people training certain ways, and like there's a lot of them that are out there crushing it, and there's other guys that were like, training this way is a recipe for injury or potential injury. And we want people to have fun and enjoy this in a safe way. So if we can kind of guide you a little bit based off like the dumb things that we have done, we'd like to try to help you on that.
Hey, Ryan,
yeah.
We're going to put all the secrets for run and gun success behind a paywall. Let's go ahead and start a Patreon.
There we go. There we go. Well, just for the people who are listening to that, these will be Mike's secrets since he has won matches. So I'll lead the direction. I don't know that I can tell you how to win a match. I've had some good stages, but not tied it together to a whole match. But yeah, maybe if enough people give us money, Mike will share all his secrets. So
hey,
yeah,
we don't need. Ammo's expensive, and our sponsors are not ammo sponsors. So
that is true. If people want to pay, we'll I got PayPal too. We'll take cash and cards or cash and checks out of matches. So yeah, sit down with us and we'll give you some secrets. So
dang, sounds like we could sell personalized coaching plans.
Yeah. So I know this has been a long one. It always is, but thanks for hanging with us, and have a great night.